Welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this is episode 315. On the show today is Nephi Cole, the Director of Government Relations State Affairs for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. I've known Nephi for years, and you'll soon hear how, but I wanted to explain this adjacent topic from Three Gun really quick. I invited Nephi on to discuss the Pittman-Robertson Act because he's quite passionate about the outdoors, and he's done a lot of math on the impact of competitive shooting dollars and how those help fund public lands. We did end up talking about that, but we talked about so much more too, including the importance of SHOT Show and the NSSF, how friendly legislation is drafted, proposed, and passed, why it's important to pay attention to state-level politics, normalizing hunting with the AR platform rifles, suppressors, and much, much more. So much more. I learned a ton in this podcast, and it really got me pumped to be able to share this one with you. And you can expect a podcast like this periodically in 2022, something that is still shooting sports related, but something that expands our awareness and our knowledge as competitive shooters. All that said, buckle in because you're going to learn a lot in this interview with Nephi Cole. Nephi, welcome to the show.
Dave, long-time listener, first-time guest.
Yeah, we go way back. It's great to have you on the podcast finally.
Been a long time. I think it was before telephones. I think it wasn't phones, but it was before podcasts.
It's definitely before the iPhone.
No, and it wasn't before podcasts. But the first time I met you was actually at a local match. It was a three-gun match over here in Colorado.
Yep.
You remember?
Will County Fish and Wildlife.
Yep, and that was one of my first three-gun matches, actually. I don't know if it was my first. I can't remember, but yeah, it was super cool, and I went and met a bunch of neat guys there, and you were walking around and everybody thought you were really important.
So that must have been a long time ago because I think everybody's over me by now.
No, it was pretty cool. But yeah, that was when I was at the Wyoming governor's office at the time, working as a policy advisor for Meade. And just we were exploring different matches with the kind of idea that we would do some kind of a big match to try and bring people to the state of Wyoming to shoot, competition shooting. And so we were exploring three gun, and that's why I turned up at that match and met you there. Pretty cool.
That's interesting. So you hadn't shot three gun before you did this little fact finding mission?
No, my little brother shoots a ton, and so I think
Alma, right?
Alma Cole, and he was a USPSA production handgun, wasn't the highest division, but a national champion in a division. I forget which division back in 2002 or something like that, or three. And then we both, life catches up with you, and he went to work in cybersecurity for the federal government at really high levels, and I went on my road working in, I've worked in natural resource management fields and government type stuff. And he jumped back in with both feet. He's still a hardcore three gunner, super good shooter. When he introduced it to me, the first time I'd ever seen a three gun match, it was the Soldier of Fortune three gun matches, and Alma was shooting against, we lived in Utah.
No kidding.
Against, and he was the one guy who was giving Benny Cooley a run for his money. And that's back when they were running he was running an 870 and you roll it over and you've got all the shells hooked onto your arm, right?
Yeah.
And he's single loads and all that. And
that old armband.
Oh man, that kid could load. So he's bigger than me. He's about 6'4", and he's got really big hands. And he could load a shotgun incredibly fast for singles. And so he'd hit the shotgun and he just tear it up with the shotgun. But that was back when he was shooting an AR with a carry handle, and. But yeah, that was kind of
technology.
Yeah, I shot a lot of USPSA back then, but three gun, when he got back into it, and he was shooting with they call it. You remember the Stealth Team SIG?
No.
So when
when the
P320s before they came out, they had a bunch of dudes running around there shooting 320s at competitions.
Okay, now I do. Yeah,
they jokingly called them Stealth Team SIG. He was a member of Stealth Team SIG. And then he was on Team SIG before they did that big downsizing later on. But he's my little brother. He's 2 years younger than me, but still somebody that I really have a lot of respect for and consider, my best friend. And just I'm really proud of him. I love to watch the kid shoot. He's super fast. In fact, good match story. And I know we're kind of maybe get off track, but that.
No, this is great. I'm just going to relax a little bit.
Yeah. You remember the first match that I ever shot that you were at, other than that, Weld County, we've hosted that match here in Wyoming called the Governor's Match.
Yes.
And it was a turd, but that's okay. There were some interesting stages there. And one of the stages, they called it the Embassy, I think.
Yes.
You remember this stage they had where you roll into this stage and like there's basically a 2-page stage brief that you had to read on the clock.
Yes.
And you read through the stage brief and there's colors in it. And it's like there's a red, yellow, and blue. And the buzzer goes off. You open up this brief and you have to read through this. And then you have to start engaging targets.
Was there a green too?
I don't
because I remember someone complaining that they were like red, green.
Somebody was colorblind. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, but I don't remember the specific colors. But it was basically like you had to. Somebody was the hostage, and somebody was a bad guy, and somebody was a good guy, or whatever like that. And there was a lot of targets in there. So Alma won that stage in the entire match, and that's with Mitchell there and the Yackleys and everybody, because the kid can read super fast. Besides which, he's a bit of a gambler, and so what he does is he flips that thing over, goes to one of the last paragraphs, reads a color, and just starts blazing. And picked right and shot all the right stuff, and he smoked everybody by like 20 seconds because everybody else is reading. So
yeah, so I remember that because I was second on that stage, and no one can ever prove me wrong because the scores are not in practice score. But the method that I chose was I just breezed until I saw a color, and then it said eliminate, and I was like, that's mine.
That's exactly what he did, I think.
Yeah, and then I just tossed the rest and ran. But we actually had a dude on our squad that was he has a reading comprehension issue. Like, he's super smart guy, has a high level job, but he doesn't read fast. And man, that
stage was a bummer for him.
That was a bummer of a stage. But yeah, if you've lived most of your life on just catching up on the Cliff's Notes like I have, that it works out pretty well.
Well, we've come a long way.
We have,
Dave. We've come a long way.
I was just looking it up when you were talking, because you did invite me up for that Wyoming Governor's Day, or Wyoming Day at the Range.
Yeah.
Right. When Governor Meade declared a Wyoming Day at the Range, and you were working for him. And I just looked it up. That was episode 88 of the show. And I think I just did like 312 or something like that.
Well, everybody should go listen to the archives.
Yeah, go listen to that one back in the day.
All of them.
2016.
I just go through all of them if I were you. It's kind of like reading the Bible. Every once in a while, you got to go through all of them again.
That's right. The Book of Meade is this one.
That's the best. That's the best one they wrote.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, he was a great governor.
Yeah.
He was a good guy to work for. It was easy to work for him, and it's proud. It was easy to be proud of what you were doing.
Nice. Well, so that's how I know you is through the governor's office, and then what you work for the NSSF now.
I do, yeah. I worked for the governor of Wyoming for 6 years as a senior policy advisor. So what that entails is basically I came out of the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a conservation planner, and what I did is I put together plans to address impaired waters in the state of Wyoming. So
okay,
that's a big community effort where you work with all different stakeholder groups and basically take commentary and come up with, a solution to the problem being, pollution. So from there, they headhunted me to come work for Meade, and I worked for him for 6 years doing the energy strategy for Wyoming's water strategy. And then we ended up recruiting a company after Colorado passed a law, magazine capacity limit.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We reached out to Magpul.
My head was still on water. I was like, where's he going with this one?
Yeah, we were able to get Magpul to relocate to Wyoming. And as a result of that, the wheels started turning, and I talked to the governor. I said, hey, we could do this again. Wyoming's got a lot of things. If you're trying to build a Maytag factory, this may not be your place because, community size and all those things. But if you're talking about gun manufacturers, Wyoming has something that's very unique, which is a very pro-Second Amendment mindset. They're very libertarian in nature. There's a lot of outdoor opportunities if you live in Wyoming. Now, if you like to be crowded in the outdoors, so that's probably not your place. But if you like open space and activities that you can do in open space, like hunting and shooting, there's a lot that Wyoming has to offer. So we put together this plan to highlight those things. And that was one of them was called the Open Ranges Initiative, and the governor's Day at the Range kicked that off. And then we did a shooting sports initiative that we called, that was the Magpul Governor's Match. So it was the Wyoming Governor's Match. The idea was we wanted to host in Wyoming a national level 3-gun match that would be kind of you need to go to this match. Now, it was challenging the first time. We can go into that if you want to, but basically the idea.
I think people, if they've been listening to the show for any amount of time, they've heard it. But
well, the idea with that match, was like, hey, let's get this kicked off, and we were able to do it by making sure that we had a lot of the best shooters in the world showed up at that first match, and then we promised them that we would take feedback, and we did, and tried to improve that year after year. And I think at least while I was at the governor's office, I'd like to believe that it was a really high end match, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really privilege for me to be part of it. So we did that, and then we did a state shooting competition called the Wyoming Top 100.
Right. Yeah.
And then we started going to SHOT Show to recruit companies. And so the Shooting Hunting Outdoor Trade Show, it's the largest show of its kind in the world. It's, of course, in Las Vegas. If anybody hasn't been there, you owe it to yourself to go. This year, in January, it's a go. And so we're going to be one of the first big shows to reopen the country in terms of like having big shows again.
Yeah, I think Las Vegas is like begging for that to happen right now, because a lot of their industry and a lot of their livelihood is based on big trade shows like that.
It is.
Like us, the Concrete Show, other ones.
And it's a great community. And the people there, when you talk to the service community there, the folks who work in the casinos, the folks who work in those service industries, I mean, really, they do live for that. Like that's what they do. They're proud of it. And so not being able to do that's been really, really hard on them in a number of ways, both fiscally and in terms of just kind of the identity of Nevada. So we're looking forward to being able to be part of that. So anyway, so with the governor, I went to SHOT Show recruiting companies. We got a couple companies, more companies to move to Wyoming, including Weatherby. And then through that, I met the government relations team at the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And so NSSF is the Firearms Trade Association of America. It's 9,000 plus members, and the members of NSSF are anybody that makes, moves, or sells a firearm, a component, optic, ammunition, magazines. It's everything that you care about that goes bang, and then what's associated with it. Those are the members of NSSF. So it's all companies is our membership. It's everybody from, I always say, Beretta to Winchester. It's Cabela's to Bass Pro to wherever.
Yeah, like retailers and manufacturers, et cetera. I guess the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the name kind of throws people off at the beginning.
Yeah, it does.
Like you think it's going to be like a competition.
Yeah, I think it's guys who shoot clays.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how that works. But do you know approximately like when were they founded? Like,
yeah, it was in the late 60s officially.
So that was probably around that time where the legislation or the wording of things had to have shooting sports in it, right? You had to have a sporting sort of thing.
I don't know the details on that. I do know that as an organized body, though, we've been organized far longer than that. In fact, a lot of people don't recognize that the sporting arms and ammunition manufacturers and, SAMI is associated with the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they live in the basement.
Oh, but damn.
And so there's a lot of, we've been around for a long time. In fact, as long as they have been regulating hunting and shooting sports and the take of wildlife, we've been there. It's just, the structure and the name may have changed, but we continue to, be very proud of our history, very, very proud of what we've done since the, early 1900s in terms of, making America a great place to hunt, fish, and a great place for shooting sports. And now we're based in Connecticut, in Newtown, Connecticut, and we that's where almost everybody
one of the
lives.
most gun-friendly places on the planet.
My coworkers, it's got to be challenging for those guys, but for me, what happened is I met at SHOT Show all these folks, and when my boss, Governor Meade, termed out of office, I had an opportunity to compete for a position to join NSSF as a member of their government relations team. And so I'm the director of government relations and state affairs for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And what that really means is, there's actually 5 of us that do this job throughout the country. All of them just rock stars, the guys who do it in the way that they do it. Everybody has a little bit of specificity that makes them better at some stuff than other stuff. My bailiwick is I do all the state legislative stuff in the Rocky Mountains, Upper Midwest. I also handle governor's offices, of course, because that's kind of a sweet spot for me. Mm-hmm. And then associations of fish and wildlife agencies, so OFWA. So, your directors, all your game wardens and all those guys. I go to all those conventions and I interact with them on hunting, recruitment, retention, reactivation issues, licenses, wildlife disease issues, all that kind of stuff. That's all in, the house that I'm responsible for at NSSF.
So, forgive me if this is an insulting term, but could you be considered a lobbyist?
In some states I am.
Okay.
So there's, lobbyists, when that term comes from is, from the very early days of
like people literally standing in the lobby.
Literally standing in the lobby trying to talk to an elected official.
Yeah.
And so there's different states have different laws. And so you can't just blanket say lobbyist. It means different things in different places.
So it's an actual legal term.
And it changes. So I'm not legally,
right.
I'm not a lobbyist in like Washington, D.C., where you have to be a registered lobbyist, and there's only certain people can do it, and they have to do it a certain way.
Boy, that's a racket, huh?
Let's
register the people trying to
trying to talk to government.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so as a private individual, you can go do that any place. But if you're a professional and you do that, then again, some states, if you're any kind of a professional, you have to register as a lobbyist. In some states, it's only if you work the session. In some states, it's only, there's all these different little hooks, and they're different in every state. And so in some states, I actually have teams that I work with of guys who, depending on the needs in the state, I might reach out to a firm that's a lobbying firm, and I might, hire a couple of those individuals to work with us at the Capitol level. And we do that throughout the United States of America. So like in Washington State, Oregon State, California, a lot of these tough states, we're going to hire boots on the ground that because a lot of lobbyists, people, they spend a whole year, all year long, working with given legislators, building relationships so that they can then represent your issues effectively when, a legislative session comes around. So in a few states, I'm a registered lobbyist. In some states, I'm not. In some states, I'm, it's just what you do. In all states, my job is to try and cover state legislation that's happening that can affect our industry and our sport. And so I'll watch those.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
You're
good. Reactionary? So like
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you see a piece of legislation come up that you don't like, do you then like write a letter to the government official who brought it up?
Great question. Yeah. So we'll monitor in every state. So for example, Wyoming this year is going to have 400 plus bills. They're going to come through the state legislature. And so I'm going to look at...
That seems like a lot. Is that a lot or is that a normal load?
That's not a lot.
No, that's a normal load?
No, for a state legislature. It's totally different than the national level. You hear about like the Build Back Better Act, right?
Ugh.
And it's this giant...
Sounds like a scam.
It's this giant act that's going to hang out there, and they're going to argue about it for a year, right? And then they'll package. So at the federal level, they'll try and package little things into that.
Right.
So they'll get a big title, and they'll try and slam everything they can into it. In most states, it's not that way. So in state legislative sessions, you'll have a single bill, and lots of states will have a requirement that you can't deal with multiple issues in the same bill, which I think
that's
is wonderful.
Wyoming, right?
Yes, in most states.
So that's one thing I actually admire about Wyoming, along with the fact that like the legislator doesn't meet every single day.
Yeah, it's a citizen legislature.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I always felt as a native Coloradoan that the government was working around the clock to screw the little guy. They had to think of things to do to make their jobs worth it. Whereas here in Wyoming, they run the whole state on one session a year, right?
Well, you'd be surprised how many states, it's the majority that don't have professional legislatures. So at the national level, you see these, it's totally different. But at the state level, you got guys who are, school teachers and bus drivers and, doctors, and that's who's running your states. And it also makes it challenging though, because these sessions come in and it'll be, a 40-day session in Wyoming. So 40 working days.
400 pieces of legislation.
They're going to move all their legislation through. And so this is why it's important to stay politically active on the state level, and why everybody who's listening needs to watch. We talk about issues, like the Hearing Protection Act, right? You hear about that. Mm-hmm. How long have you been hearing about that?
10 years?
A long time.
Is it 10 years now?
It's a long time.
2021 as we record this? It's got to be.
Federal legislation takes a long time typically to pass.
Mm-hmm. That ain't going to pass, by the way. So if you're out there and you're waiting on a suppressor.
Just get your suppressor.
Just get your damn suppressor. Go through the paperwork. It's not going to happen.
So the reason I bring it up is because on a state level, you can pass a bill in 3 weeks.
Right.
So on a state level, somebody could bring a bill that affects your rights. Somebody could bring red flag legislation tomorrow to your state legislature in Ohio, and they could get it all the way through the process in 3 weeks.
And stuff like that's happened in my home state. You know, like the bill we were just talking about that brought Magpul here. You know, we had 4, and I can't even find the 4th. It escapes me because I escaped the state. But it was like a magazine ban. It was no private sales, and then there was another one I can't even remember. So there was a whole suite of them, and we were able to get several moved. But it was like they shotgunned all the stuff at the
lots
legislature.
of interesting stuff happens in terms of there's a lot of playing chess that goes on that people, you wouldn't imagine it, but it's, you know, in a situation like that, you know, you might throw a bunch of bills on the wall, and that's what I watch for, hoping that one sticks. And so my job is to try and make sure that I don't miss any of those bills in any of the states. And then if we find something that's a concern, I am going to reach out to the legislature and talk to the sponsor of the bill. But also, I'm going to start counting heads, and we're going to start visiting with other people in the legislature and say, okay, this guy's promoting the bill. Who's going to oppose it and why? Or so that would be example of a bill that we would oppose. And we have been very successful in defeating at the state level. Since we beefed up our state team at NSSF, we've been remarkably successful. And I think if everybody looks around you and you kind of see, you know, where anti-gun legislation has gone in the last, 4 or 5 years, you can see our success.
Yeah.
Because you haven't seen it go places. And our team has been very proactive in doing good things as well. So whether it's suicide prevention in terms of making voluntary incentive-based programs available, we've been very active in that regards.
NSSF is also responsible for sending me a lock every time I buy a gun, right?
Project Child Safe.
That's a huge thing.
So yeah, and that's really our manufacturers just stepping up to the plate, all of them. And again, that's why you're part of an organization, because they can all get on board with doing the same thing. But in terms of Project Child Safe, which is those additional locks that are like a yellow lock, 40 million of those, in addition to locks that go out on guns, over 40 million trigger locks distributed with the help of 15,000 partner law enforcement agencies across the U.S. We do that. We do Operation Secure Store. We do Own It, Respect It, Secure It. We do, again, we're partners with the American Council for Suicide Prevention, American Federation for Suicide Prevention. We do a lot on that in that regard. And proactive legislation, we do things like industry protection. So we've done in the majority of states over the last couple of years, we've been able to pass stateside bills that preclude people from lawsuits that are inappropriate lawsuits against firearms manufacturers for stuff that.
So I guess on a national level, we know like the Lawful Commerce and Arms Act.
Protection of the Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, PLCAA.
So is it similar to that?
What we've tried to do is make sure that there's a boot and suspenders approach by putting that on the ground in states as well.
We have that here in Wyoming?
We do.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we did this last year. We were very active in making sure that we had essential business designation. So when the pandemic occurred, you remember we had this issue where everybody was closing down. We didn't close down.
So that's odd for me because here we are. What is it? Year 2 of the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and I worked through the entire thing. And so when I hear like people are still frightened and afraid and looking at vaccines and things like that, I just think like I went to work every single day. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, so 47 plus governors made the decision early on to list, because it was a state-by-state decision, but the decision was made to make sure that firearms manufacturers, retailers, distributors were all listed as essential. And
so I'm happy with the outcome, but what was the justification for that?
They're essential?
Yeah.
Well, initially you had this report came out of the federal government, talking about the supply chain and the importance to national security.
Right. Oh, okay.
But when you look at national security, so if you're looking at shutting down an ammunition manufacturer and then how that affects national security, especially when you're in a war. Well, what happens when you're also dealing with state security? So you're dealing with your police force. And most of your police forces, you have your big state guys who may have a given FFL or, but a lot of these officers, especially in your rural communities, they buy guns and ammunition at a local store.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. They'll just go in with a, certain budget and they'll have to purchase their own sidearm that they carry. And so now if that applies to law enforcement, why doesn't it apply to you as a business owner? And you had states, interestingly enough, you had states like Colorado where Governor Polis was actually very receptive to that discussion.
Oh, weird.
Because you have some businesses that are cash businesses. And so you have you have these cash businesses that basically depend on some level of security.
Yeah.
And especially when you have your law enforcement being taxed, as it was at the start of the pandemic, you had people, there's a real stress. It just makes sense to say, hey, look, why wouldn't we recognize these things are necessary for security, for national security, for community security. Well, they're also important for the security of your business. Mm-hmm. They're also important for the security of your house.
Yeah.
And if you want,
so they actually listen to that argument.
You bet. That's
great.
And I'd like to, and it's not just listen to the argument. I think that this was a logical thing that a lot of great decision makers, they came to that decision by themselves. And some people have, credited the Trump administration, but the decisions, to be frank, on the state level were made prior to there was a secondary wave of federal guidance that came out that made it fairly clear. And what we wanted to do was make sure that guidance, was basically baked in. And that was, we did that with working, we continue to do that, but we worked with state legislators throughout the country to be able to make sure that those essential industry protections, exist in state law so that something like this happens again. Folks don't come in and say, well, we're going to come in and close down, these essential industries, things that you need for your security.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting because there's now a debate, considering the fallout in a lot of states of like government overreach. There's a big debate now of emergency powers. Mm-hmm. So it's, I guess, to NSSF's credit, it's great that now we have the boot and suspenders thing you're talking about, the ability to point and say, no, these are essential businesses. You can't shut them down even under emergency powers.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you'll look at the different states, and it's a lot. I can't go over them off the top of my head, but it's a lot where that was the case. And again, credit to state legislators, because those are the guys who basically, you say it to them, they get the vision themselves, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna run a bill on this.
Yeah.
And they're able to do that in a fairly quick turnaround. And so I'm sure they'll continue to do that this year. That's some of the proactive stuff we do. Other stuff in Colorado this year, we're very hopeful. We've got a sponsor and a bill to have a exemption on the magazine ban for competition use. So
you're kidding?
Nope. And so we can talk more about that later. But I'm very excited. Representative Perry Will is carrying that. And, we've got another bill that I hope to run in Colorado that we believe will be help grow access to shooting ranges in the more urban areas of Colorado. We've got bills in Utah to the Financial Industry Non-Discrimination Act. That's a huge one for us.
Nice.
So the FIND Act, we were able to pass.
I'm interested in that because even though the Three Gun Show, we sell T-shirts and maybe the occasional handguard or something like that, we still get discriminated against because of the title of the show. Yeah, well, it's interesting how that works, but it's been going on since Operation Choke Point, the Obama administration. Yeah. And so folks who aren't aware of that, Operation Choke Point, it was after a shooting tragedy there. The administration at the time, the Obama administration, wanted to pass anti-gun legislation. They were unable to. And so they used a roundabout methodology to try and curb the firearms industry. And what they did is they went in and created rules where they classified firearms-related businesses as risky businesses. And they put them in with a bunch of other entities like that's like pawn shops and pornographers and payday loans and things like that. I mean, they put them in the category of folks, and so they made this category of disfavored industries by the industry. And then they reached out to banks, and what they did is they said, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to tell you who you can loan to, but if you're loaning money to these entities, your audit requirements are going to be significantly more stringent. And so who doesn't like to be audited?
Yeah, and so basically you just told banks is either you do things our way or we're going to audit you like crazy.
Yeah.
And as a result, what you had is decisions began to be made at these different financial institutions that were that made it basically you go and sit down in meetings like, well, this is a financial decision. We're going to need to discriminate because financially we have to. And they wouldn't call it probably discrimination, but that that happened and that got baked in. That rule got removed, but it was already baked in. And so you saw, as you know, some people call it wokeness now, but you'll see a lot of these companies and, you know, financial institutions, organizations where this level of discrimination against the firearms industry it just became acceptable in that time period. And that continues to carry over.
Yeah.
What the Financial Industry Non-Discrimination Act does, the FIND Act, and we have it running at the federal level with our fantastic federal team. And then in multiple states, we're running this as a state bill as well. We passed it in Wyoming and Georgia last year. We passed it in Texas last year. They're all slightly different. But what they do is create disincentives where financial institutions have to look at what would be the consequence to their business if they were to choose to discriminate openly because someone's involved in the firearms industry. If you're interested in that, go look it up in Texas. Texas is the version of the bill. I think that's fantastic. And what it does is just says, if you want to do business with the state of Texas, with our state, with our municipalities, then you can't discriminate against firearms industries.
And Texas has a huge amount of government,
a huge amount of wealth,
giant tax
as a state. Yep. And so basically what that does is it takes them out of the market for being able to work with Texas. And so there are a number of states. Utah this year is going to look at the Financial Industry Non-Discrimination Act. South Dakota, there are a number of others that are looking at that. Montana in a couple of years, they're in an off session this year. But we hope to see that really grow. We believe that, if a right is constitutionally protected, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against somebody on the basis of that. That's fundamentally inappropriate. And so,
can I give you a piece of personal feedback?
Yeah.
So on that note, we found a minor loophole when I was trying to find a credit card processing for a project, and their processor is in Colorado, but the bank is in Wyoming. And Colorado obviously does not have that legislation. Wyoming does. So we were kind of hosed at that point because they just threw their arms up and were like, sorry. Yeah. That's our processor.
It's pretty interesting, but it happens in different there are a lot of there are a lot of tentacles out there in that industry. And you can see, you're involved in it. You can see how harmful it is. And that's one of the arguments that we've had in bringing it forward is in order to do business today, it's not like you can walk up to the front door with a bag of cash and do business.
What am I going to have people mail me $20 and I mail them a hat?
You have to be, you have to have access to the machine. And so
if you want, so there's this beautiful sleeping dog next to us here. I have a very cute photo of him, and you can take that around and show the banks, look, this is who you're harming. This guy needs to eat every day. Yeah. And if we don't process credit cards, Parker doesn't eat.
Well, the nice thing is I think that we're starting to turn the corner on that because financial institutions, by and large, they don't want to be part of it either. They don't want to, you go talk to a banker and say, hey, do you guys want to be in charge of monitoring the woke brigade?
Yeah.
And they don't want anything to do with them. And so what these bills do is they give an opportunity for a bank to just be able to sit down and talk with shareholders and stuff. Say, look, we're not going to play this game of trying to police everybody else's thinking and thoughts and everything, because if we do, it doesn't make financial sense at the end of the day. And so what it does is it's just it eliminates that pressure on that institution. It allows them to do what they do best, which is just make decisions based on financial issues. It allows them to look at the bottom line and rather than trying to interpret the flavor of the month on Twitter in terms of
morality.
Yes. All they can look at, it basically allows them to take that out of the equation and gives them defensibility in doing so with the folks who were pushing them to do that. And so we're really proud to be working on bills like that. NSSF, I couldn't imagine a better place to work because literally it's something I care about. I absolutely love guns, hunting, and the shooting sports. And it sounds cheesy to say this, but I love this country. I love what we are as Americans. I love our history. I love, who we are and how we think. And, working on these issues, I think is super American, and it's just fun to be a part of.
Yeah. That didn't used to be a bold statement, but, and especially with our audience, right? You're preaching to the choir. Everyone's pounding the steering wheel of their Chevy and saying, damn right, I love America too. But it's kind of weird. The like you said, the Twitter mob, the loud people right now are the ones that are saying, there's this country is fundamentally broken. There's fundamentally this problem. There's this problem. But when you look at like the values in which the country was founded on, it's like no, personal freedom, man. It's like, don't look at me for your moral compass, and I won't look at you for mine. You do your thing over there. I'll do my thing over here, and So
I'm going to give you a happy thing to take home.
Let's do that.
So the cool thing is, despite what you may have heard over the last 2 years, we've actually gained incredible ground. Mm-hmm. Our industry and America has always been a center-right country. It continues to be. And you're right when you say, like, you have these loud voices out there. They might be more frequent. So you might think that is, the perception, if you're on the defensive, is like, oh my gosh, they're coming after me. But the reality is, what we've seen on the ground is the game has shifted. We're winning the game.
Good.
And so for some reasons and some proof of that, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen well over 12 million first-time gun buyers since the beginning of the pandemic.
There's the applause. How awesome is that, man?
I say well over 12 million because I'm talking about numbers from the middle of this year still. And so that's not NICS checks. That's not just, I'm talking about new gun buyers, people who have never owned a gun before. 12 million. Now there's good and there's bad to that. Here's the bad. If each of them buys one box of ammunition, that's 1.2 billion rounds of ammunition that are now of demand.
Did you write the script of that federal commercial?
No, but literally that's where you're at, and that's people are wondering, well, how come it's tough to find ammo? And it's there's some funny things about that, but you probably can find 9mm and 223 again. But go try and find like 35 Wheeling, if you're shooting something like that. And you can see what's popular in the U.S. You can see what they're purchasing, because if it's coming back out, that means there's a priority on production of that cartridge.
Yeah.
And so if you want to know what cartridges are going to be around, and look at the cartridges that are on the shelf right now, those are America's popular firearms and cartridges.
I'll tell you one thing I learned through the pandemic and the ammo shortage was that 17 HMR is going to be my go-to round, because I could find it. I could find it everywhere, but I have no gun to shoot it with.
Well, those 12 million people, and it's 12 million plus, they were unique. There's a 58% uptick in minority gun ownership, 40% increase in female gun ownership. And when you looked at those numbers, the people who bought this time, it wasn't the same people who bought in previous, bumps, where it was like you or me going to buy a new gun.
Yeah.
No.
It wasn't the 5 lowers that I bought.
No. And so and what that means is they looked a lot more like America and less like you and me. What does that mean? That means you had people from across the demographics, including the political spectrum. You had a ton of people who identified as independents and even Democrats who bought their first firearms. You know what that does to the argument? It opens it way up, because suddenly these people are like, wait a minute, you mean that applies to me? Because you know what they bought?
Yeah.
When people buy firearms, 50% of the firearms that people buy are handguns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's primarily, and what kind of handguns? They're primarily handguns that are semi-automatic handguns with a magazine capacity greater than 10. Mm-hmm. And you know what the next most popular thing they bought was? ARs. Black guns. And the AR-15, over 18% of guns purchased are MSRs, modern sporting rifles, what we call them. And they are AR platform gun. So that 18% of guns that's 18% of the market. When you look at long guns, it is by far the highest category. If you took all other traditional rifles and scooped them together, it's going to be less than 15% of the market. So you have more ARs being sold than any other kind of long gun. And so, and then more than traditional hunting rifles. And that's really important for a number of reasons. Number one, when these people who bought firearms, now you're looking at 70% of the market, right? Basically, that is a firearm that, would have been covered under, what we would call the Feinstein level assault weapons ban. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's, and the people that are buying these things are people who are middle of the road, and they're recognizing that the proposals for restrictions were unreasonable. They're seeing it.
Yeah. And firsthand now, they now have skin in the game.
They have skin in the game.
They now know exactly what we're talking about because they have it on their desk. They know what it is.
They know. They're informed. They're educated.
Right. And I'm a good person and I have this handgun. It can't be that bad.
They are educated. And it is just, and we've done the research to know this, is that it's shifted the dynamic, the political dynamic where most people, where you could have said you had, let's just say the numbers at 50%, you had people leaning towards, oh yeah, I'm in favor of gun control.
Yeah.
They're leaning the other way.
So I've actually seen this in a couple of news articles, even in like mainstream outlets who you would assume wouldn't report on that. They're saying like the support of gun control is the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah, it's lower than at least it's been in a significant amount of time, over 15 years. And again, the reason is
probably 20. Like when was the original ban? Was that 92? Is that right?
There's the Brady. There's the
when was the original
assault weapons ban? Was 94.
94. Okay, that's what I was thinking. 94 assault weapons ban. So since then, that was probably the last time that
it's really interesting because it's just educated people on that there really isn't any such thing as an assault weapon. That's a made up term. And so when people figure out that is the case, it's been a difference maker.
I'll give you a piece of good information then too. When I first got when I got my first firearm as an adult, like I had a Ruger 1022 growing up, but when I bought my first firearm, I discovered the NFA. It was because it was an 18.5-inch shotgun and the barrel just extended just a little bit farther than the magazine tube. And I asked my buddy, I was like, what if we like cut that back a little bit? And he's like, that would be a felony, Dave.
Says, let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with him. Let's not do that.
So that sent me down a research rabbit hole of, well, if that's a felony, what else is a felony? So I went up and looked up the NFA. And I saw like how ridiculous it was. And then of course I found some dissenting opinions online and stuff like that were like, oh yeah, this super arbitrary. And I thought like, okay, well, and then I was around guns. So I was like, okay, this 16-inch is fine, but this 14.5 is not fine if you don't pin and weld that comp, that whole thing. And then it got me thinking of like, why do I have to get a permit to build a shed on my own property? Like it just burst the Liberty doors wide open.
Well, I'm not going to be able to talk to you about putting a shed on your property, but I will say, our advice is just, whatever the law is, obey the law. So there are a lot of people.
But my point is now that there's 12 million new gun owners, so some of them are going to go down that path and think more liberty and freedom minded because they'll start to realize what a massive web of laws there are out there to catch the little guy for any reason you can absolutely think of. Yeah, and it doesn't just pertain to firearms; it goes beyond everything else. So hopefully, in a few years here, we're going to be looking at more liberty-minded voters.
Well, I think you're already seeing it. You saw Governor Youngkin, the new governor of Virginia.
Yeah,
where you're going to see that happen. Over and over again when people, if somebody's going to campaign and they're not going to recognize the essential liberties are important, that parents being able to make decisions for their kids, people being able to have responsibility for their own choices in terms of things like firearm ownership and things like that. You're not going to be able to run on against something like that and be successful overall. And so I think that it is going to be very positive for the dynamic of firearms ownership. And again, we're in a really good place, a lot better than, people think. So if anybody tells you like, if they're like the sky is falling, and it's not, we're really, as a community, it's important for us to be responsible and to take ownership of that in a responsible way, because again, more people are coming into the firearms community now. The number one thing we have to do is we got to be welcoming.
Yeah.
We got to open the doors and we got to be like, hey, look, I know that the mainstream media has told you that we're a bunch of crazies, and we live under the stairs and we only wear black, or, and
we're stacking beans and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not. We're one of you. We're going to go to pizza together. We're going to have a burger, and then we're going to go to the range and have a good time. And by the way, we like to surf, and I climb, and like all those things. Like we need to be opening enough that people know that that's who we are, because that's who we are in America. America is not a very tiny percentage of radical gun owners and then the rest of America. No, America is a country where 50% of people in this country own firearms, and well more than that know people who, and that's people who will admit it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It used to be that you couldn't admit that stuff.
Yeah, and so, we really, again, we are in a really good place, and, hunting has something to do with that. You'll hear people sometimes say, hunters or gun owners, but think about this. Less than 5% of Americans hunt.
Really?
Yep. 50% of Americans own firearms.
Huh,
and when you think
crazy.
back to that number that I mentioned before about, what guns sell,
yeah,
go back to that number. Yeah. And I mean, it's funny, but like there's been this perception, and it's really carried by, one side of the political spectrum that, hunters are the real American gun owners and they carry a double-barreled shotgun. That's
no
not.
hunter worth his salt needs more than 5 rounds.
Yeah. And you know what? Like when I go into the field, hunting deer or whatever, like honestly, depending on the gun I'm carrying, there may be, 3 rounds in it or 5 rounds in it or whatever. How many shots? And they're like, how many shots does it take? Well, clearly it only takes 1, but that doesn't have a whole lot to do with what's the convenient way to carry ammunition is like entirely different than that. And
you want to rattle around in your pocket or in the magazine?
Well, and the cool thing is with hunting guns, think about this. If you took every gun in America and shook it out on the floor right here, right in front of us, and we started pulling guns like just randomly out of the pile, every 4th gun, at 1 in 5 guns that we pulled out of that pile would be a gun that's going to go into the field hunting someday. 1 in 5. Now, consider this. If we take every AR-15 in America, every modern sporting rifle, we shake those out on the ground, we start pulling those out, 1 in 4 of those guns is going to go into the field hunting someday. The AR has literally become, the modern sporting rifle is literally just another gun. And that is what we've been waiting for. We knew it would happen. But basically you had this story that people used to tell, like, the ARs are so scary because, Arnold Schwarzenegger has them in the movie.
High-powered.
Yeah. What's happened now is people have realized, the gun, it's just a gun. It happens to be the most modular gun you can buy. It's publicly sourced how you can build it. And so it's not like anybody has it's not like, somebody has there's belts.
No patent.
Look at bolt guns. You're going to try and find a stock for a certain bolt gun. Like you have to have a stock for that bolt gun.
Yeah.
Whereas with ARs, just like it's an AR-15 mil-spec pattern. I mean, that's why it's so popular. They're modular. They're effective. They're easy to shoot. They're non-intimidating. I would maintain there is no more versatile gun in the United States of America than that gun, because you can hunt with it. You can sport shoot with it. You can hunt big game with it. You can hunt squirrels with it. You can use it for home protection. It literally does everything. There's a reason it's the most popular gun in America. There are 20 million of them in this country. They are common. And people are taking them into the field hunting now. And one of the challenges that we face is if you get a group of old hunters all in their 50s, right?
Right.
And you're like, okay, what does somebody look like when they come into the field hunting? What do they look like? Well, they're wearing a red flannel shirt, I'm just joking here, but they all believe they're carrying a bolt gun, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that most of your young hunters, if you give people a chance, you let them try these different patterns of firearms, and then you give them something they actually like to shoot at the range and they want to take into the field, they're going to gravitate towards the AR.
Yeah, of course.
If you put, you put a line of guns and you walk them down the line, you shoot them at the range, they're coming back to that one.
Especially like the old Woodstock guns, right? Woodstock guns. Like that, I don't know anyone my age or younger that owns primarily a gun with a Woodstock and like, this is my go-to shooter. I love the engraving on this.
Yeah, well, they're beautiful. And you'll find people like jokingly, they'll call somebody a FUD, right?
Yeah.
Like the Elmer FUD. And if you talk to hunters, like some of them get really offended by, that, like, why are you calling me a FUD? But I mean, really,
because you're being a FUD.
Really, the issue is like, you kind of have this barrier that we got to break down, which is somebody that's been hunting for a long time, like my buddy David Wilms. I'm going to pick on Dave. He and I,
your co-host,
my co-host, the Your Mountain podcast. If you've never listened to it, but Dave, to be fair to Dave, his 30-06 has a synthetic stock on it. But it's a gun that he won in a raffle when he was 14.
Oh, man.
And he has killed more wild game with that gun than I can, he's way ahead of me. He's awesome. But, he'd never shot an AR.
So this might be a good transition to give Dave a hard time about his Pittman Robertson contribution.
Yeah, it's zero. It's basically zero. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But yeah, so this barrier, though, you have these new shooters who are coming in who hunting typically, there's a lot of barriers to getting into hunting. And we really need to work to get
you've asked me many times, like Dave, you ever hunt deer? Do you ever hunt elk? Like, no, I don't know how. I don't know anyone. And hey,
that is the barrier, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
because it's not just like you don't just buy a gun, but like, oh, I'm an elk hunter now.
Well, and is there a school you go to? Do you have is there a guy that you have to he'll take you to the spot and put you there, or
you're absolutely
right. According to Cameron Haynes, I got to do 200 friggin' pull-ups and deadlift 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, that he's a terrible long range shooter. This is a bow.
Yeah, he's a bow hunter. Doesn't shoot anything farther than 25
good for him. I'm glad he's personally actualized. But no, in all seriousness, you're right. I mean, that's it. Again, less than 5%.
I know I'm right because that's literally the reason I've never gone.
Well,
it's not something I could just go do by myself.
And the crazy thing is, go to a 3-gun match.
Yeah.
And you'll find 100 dudes on that line who have all the tools and the skills in the world to really be effective hunters.
So my 3-gun rifle is just to the right of us. Aside from being like ear-splittingly loud for the guys that are hunting next to me, it's a great hunting setup for here in Wyoming, right?
It's 223.
It's 223. I can shoot a whitetail.
Everything. You can hunt whitetail, mule deer, antelope. You can't hunt elk with it.
Right.
But you know what you can hunt elk with?
I got a 6.5 upstairs.
6.5. You can hunt it with a 6 arc too.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that Hornady cartridge is it's pretty interesting. I need to find a barrel. I want to play with one of those because that's a small platform, right?
It is a small platform AR. So I literally am the first guy on earth to take an elk with a 6 arc, and that was it was just really fun. And but it just goes to show you these platforms continue to evolve. Cartridge development continues to evolve, and what's driving it is the shooting sports.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that. If you think it's not, firearms technology is not getting driven by guys shooting a 270 win. Great cartridge. 270 is awesome.
It's not Dave Willems and his 30-06. That's technology that's been around since the First World War.
They're not the guys driving it, but they're benefiting from it. And that's not a bad thing. That's just, we need to, like, both sides be open to that idea, that understanding that there is this back and forth of development that comes from the shooting sports. And typically, like, you hear people like, oh, those are military guns or whatever. That's ridiculous. Firearms all come from the same genesis. When they start, whether it's a Mauser or an Armalite, you look at these things, they're typically developed by private individuals in our country. Like the smartest dudes on earth in developing firearms are, the John Brownings, right? They're guys working in their workshop, making a better mousetrap. And then these advancements in technology that they make, they permeate out. They end up, look at a 3-gun rifle today, and then go pick up an M4 from an M16 style rifle from like the 1980s. And you can, and I will tell you straight up, that 3-gun rifle, all the improvements in that rifle, they weren't driven by guys in the military making the gun better.
Yeah.
It went the other direction. In fact, that's why people, that's why the firearms are getting better. And there's this great crosstalk that occurs that gives us better products, that helps us, turn super expensive, ultra heavy rangefinders now into tiny little ones that we can carry around and use for bow hunting or rifle hunting. That gives us range finding binoculars.
Yeah, rangefinders in my binoculars now, sitting on my desk here.
Absolutely. And you think about like how lucky we are to have those technologies, and everybody needs to take a step back and just realize that neat confluence that we've had that makes this possible. So the Pittman Robertson, you mentioned that, and it's important that people know what that is. A lot of people who are just sports shooters don't know.
Can I tell you how I came about this interesting topic real quick. It's kind of a funny story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mutual friend of ours, Ruben Alexson.
Yes.
Told me
the butcher.
The butcher.
Oh yeah, it's Ruben the butcher.
The butcher.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
We can talk about it later.
Okay.
But just know, anybody that meets him now, you're talking to the butcher.
Okay. All right. Okay. So anyway, a couple years ago,
I'll tell you why.
I would imagine.
I'll tell you later.
You just went hunting with each other, right?
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's great. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, when I was living in Texas, he recommended I listen to the Meat Eater podcast, and he's like, "You got to listen to this episode about Pittman Robertson because I think it'd be something that's important to talk about on the podcast." And so, did cover it briefly in a previous episode, but I've always been fascinated by the concept of what we were just talking about, like not to pick on your buddy Dave, but your buddy Dave Willems, not a huge contributor to Pittman Robertson. However, me, and just looking behind me and all the shit that I have stuff that I have accumulated over there, I am a big contributor to Pittman Robertson, right? And in that episode of Meat Eater, they read a letter of a guy who explained the entire thing, and these people, Meat Eater people, and their listeners, the Meat Eater audience, they have like this high sense of self for their conservation and how well they take care of the lands that they hunt. They're big outdoor, what am I trying to say? Public landowners and stuff like that. They consider themselves public landowners. And then the letter just basically told them, like, you don't pay anything. The people that are paying are Dave and all his buddies that shoot 3-gun. And
80%.
And the person that wrote that letter was Nephi Cole.
I believe that because I was going to, yeah, it's, if you look at the numbers, it's 80% of, so what does Pittman Robertson tax? Pittman Robertson is the federal aid in wildlife recovery. I believe it's from the 1920s or 30s. It's an act that was passed. It takes a excise tax. It's an 11% excise tax on arms and ammunition. Now it also includes a 10% tax on handguns. And that's a manufacturer tax. So you guys never see it, the end user. That's paid by Federal Premium Ammunition. It's paid by Weatherby. It's paid by, different.
Does Magpul pay for that?
No, because that's an accessory.
Okay, so this is
arms and ammunition.
Arms and ammunition.
Yeah, so but there are certain other things that are rolled in.
Bows? And does that include arrows?
It includes bows and arrows as well.
And I think some fishing tackle, is that correct?
That's a Dingle Johnson. So there's a separate act that brings that in. But if you look at the overall of what's really coming from, it's this year, it's predominantly, and I say 90% plus, it's firearms and ammunition.
Yeah, for sure.
So those other things make up small percentages of Pittman Robertson. The firearms and ammunition piece of that this year, that excise tax, is going to be over $1 billion.
Yeah, that's interesting.
$1 billion that goes directly to conservation. And this is what people don't realize.
So they say $7 billion in the 76 years and $1 billion this year. Like, that's how big of a friggin' year the firearms industry
had. It's been amazing. And I think that $7 billion, somebody needs to update that. I think that's off by a significant margin.
Is it? My numbers could be wrong.
It's okay. That's what Google does to us. It makes us look at all the different types of numbers and figure out which ones are the right ones.
I know, exactly. We have to take an average almost.
But this year, I'll tell you, it's $1 billion this year. And what that does is that $1 billion goes from our manufacturers. Interestingly enough, Vista Outdoors is the largest contributor in the nation, over $80 million a year.
Well, they're going to be even bigger now because they bought Remington Ammo, right?
Yeah, so
they've got Remington Ammo, CCI, Federal, and then all their gun companies. Like, that's huge.
So that kicks up to the federal level, and then it gets dispersed to the states by what we call a formula funding methodology, so that every state gets a piece of that pie. And then that gets distributed based on land mass. But here's the other piece. It gets distributed also based on numbers of licenses sold.
Right. So participation in hunting.
That helps
hunting
decide.
Specifically.
Yes. It's licenses sold. And so, and that's, what that means is like that you may not go into the field if you buy a certain type of license.
Yeah.
But basically that is part of the driver of the equation that determines how much how much your state's going to get. And so Wyoming, that's going to be like $27 million. And so for a state that doesn't have a whole lot of people. And so in Texas, it's massive. Texas, I think, is the largest. I believe in Texas or California is the largest, receiver of Pittman Robertson funds. So when that money comes in, that money goes directly to the game and fish agencies, and that's because of that license match, and that was put into place to keep it from getting raided by the state government. They couldn't
Smart.
So basically it goes in and it matches and it goes into their wildlife funds. So that does habitat management, programs for wildlife. But it also, there's a big chunk of that if states are doing it right, is eligible for use in building ranges. So it's the hunter's education piece. So there's a big piece, they call it hunter's ed, but hunter's ed can be much bigger than that. And states need to really think outside the box because, you're building ranges. You've been to Cameo. That's a Pittman Robertson funded facility.
Yeah, so Cameo is the range in near Grand Junction, Colorado that we always talk about. It's an absolutely incredible range that is state run. And
it's a $10 million Pittman Robertson facility. That's because you can use the Pittman Robertson money, that federal money that comes in. You can take $9 million of that money, and then you have to come up with $1 million of state money. Then you get to spend that on a range.
No kidding.
Yep, it's a 9-to-1 match.
Wow.
And so South Dakota Governor Noem is going to do the exact same thing. She's in the process of planning a phenomenal range outside of Rapid City. A number of states are looking at these same, and it's going to be very similar. Cameo is the model that they're looking about how to build that. But anyway, so that money comes in. It's about 50% of the money that funds state game and fish agencies. Now, to give credit to the hunters, now to talk about the breakdown, it's about an 80-20 breakdown. So hunters are responsible for about 20% of that PR, and sport shooters are responsible for the other 80.
Wow.
And so the thing is, sport shooters don't realize that they are part of it. So if you're asking hunting deer, you're responsible. Like if there's good deer habitat in your state and they've been spending money on it, you paid for it. Pheasant habitat.
We're not
hunter's education.
We're not just talking about habitat. I guess hunting habitat, right? We're talking about natural resources. Period. So whether you're a hiker, a camper, something like that.
We are the number one contributor to conservation in the United States of America as an entity.
So me as a, former Coloradoan, grew up there, climbed many 14,000 foot peaks, 13,000 foot peaks and stuff like that. That enjoyment was paid for, a lot of it out of Pittman Robertson dollars.
You've done a lot. We've done, again.
And if you poll the people at the trailhead, they would all be against hunting.
Mm-hmm. But hunting dollars probably helped build the trailhead.
Correct. So if you want to save the lands that you love so much and all the flowers and stuff, shoot 3-gun or, purchase a hunting license, then don't even go hunt. Because now you're bringing those Pittman Robertson dollars to your state, and then we don't have to deal with you in the field. or we
could have state ranges where you purchase a license for range use and things like that. There's some innovative ways that we could really expand access and funding. Yeah. Hippies have guns too. That's true. That's the lesson.
Hippies need guns too,
man.
That's
the lesson from the last 2 years is that 12 million people bought firearms that never owned a firearm before. But the exciting part about this all, and hunters don't need to feel bad. What everybody needs to remember also is that
I didn't mean hunters need to feel bad.
No, but they're also buying a license.
Sure.
And so they may not be contributing as much PR dollars, but they are paying for those tags as well.
And they're contributing to that extra bulk fund, right? Of the more hunters the more licenses sold.
Yeah, they're bringing 50% of that match has to come from someplace, and that's typically primarily licensed dollars. Now, the exciting thing, opportunity wise, is that we've really just scratched the surface of what we can do on both sides, and we can really grow access, hunting and shooting sports, all these things by working together. There's no reason that the hunting community, we need to get those guys out shooting sports.
Mm-hmm.
Because in fact, there's a competition called NRL Hunter.
I've shot it.
It's all about that. It's about creating an opportunity where guys that didn't know they were into sport shooting, suddenly they have a reason to go to the range and up their game and buy a new optic and work on
their game. They can practice. See, that's the thing that I saw years ago when I would volunteer at the range at Lockheed Martin where I worked at. We would see September, I guess, right? So September, you could not get a freaking lane on the 100-yard range. All these guys assumed they're only going to see 100-yard shots, I just hold an inch high, that kind of thing. And that was I never had more weird exchanges with old dudes about, I know what I'm doing. It's well, why is it taking you 4 boxes to 0, bro?
Yeah.
And
Hey,
and they never ever practice. But
every time he pulls the trigger, I just want you to think nickel for conservation. Nickel for conservation.
But NRL Hunter is a great way to go out and practice those skills year round, right? Because like you have to find them, you gotta range them, you gotta shoot them. You know?
Yeah, it's a super fun match. So anybody that hasn't done what I highly encourage, even though this is the 3-gun show, try an NRL Hunter match because it's different than your like a standard PRS match is almost like an arms race now. NRL Hunter, you can show up and you can be pretty competitive. You're gonna have to run a 6'5". Creedmoor or bigger.
Minimum.
And so that's going to be a challenge for some dudes who are just running 2.23s right now. But at the same token, it's on the clock. And then you shoot every stage sight unseen, and you have to show up, identify 4 targets, and then engage those targets. And it's a lot of fun. It's my favorite shooting competition right now.
And after the match that I shot in Cameo, I talked about it on the show. We had Colin Fossen, who's a match director over in Laramie, talk about it on the show. So if anyone's wondering like where I heard of it, it was from Nephi. Like honestly, I knew it existed, but Nephi encouraged me to go check it out and actually lent me a lot of gear so I could have a good match. So.
And you even used some of it, which is shocking.
I did, yeah. I used all the gear that was
just goes
relevant.
To show you, like I may not be able to shoot, but I've got gear.
Yeah.
I think it's
don't watch what Nephi does, but check out his gear.
Yeah, let me talk with you about gear, and then I'm just gonna go sit down and have a Slurpee and watch you shoot.
Yeah, I gotta drive some politicians around in a golf cart. So I'll be right back.
That's the worst part for me about my job is that I love to go to shooting competitions, but the most effective thing for me to do when I'm there, like my job, is to make sure I scoop up a decision maker and take them around to watch you shoot.
Yep.
Because like I need them, they need to understand this. And so me just shooting doesn't do a good job of protecting our sport and growing it, which is a real bummer because it's kind of funny, mutual. I don't know. Did you meet Garrett from Garrett Long from Meat Eater?
Yeah. I met him up in Cody, didn't I?
At
the Wyoming Governor's match. But was it 2 years ago or something like that?
But I took Garrett out and we went and shot an NRL match up in Montana. I was trying to get him. I was like, you got to come shoot this. You got to try this. This is awesome. So we headed up there, and he ended up calling me. He's like, well, I don't have ammo for a gun. And it was after we'd shot the Wyoming match. And in Wyoming, I have a Gunworks 7 Rem Mag that is just like a magic gun. Like it's just amazing.
Also a Wyoming company.
Yes. And the gun is, it's a 168 grain bullet going 2,900 feet per second with a BC of 0.62. So it basically just gains speed and defies gravity and hammers steel at like 700 yards. Like it's amazing. But that gun, so I shot that.
I think that was the demo they had set up at the Wyoming Governor's match.
They had a gun up there, yeah.
It was this. I think it was the cartridge you're talking about because we shot so freaking far away and it was like effortless. It was like kind of boring, like impact.
I love that platform. But anyway, I carried it, but it's a 7 Rem Mag. It's fairly big, so you're burning a lot of powder.
Mm-hmm.
And had a lot of fun. Looked at the match scores, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I could, if I shot production, because that's not a production gun. That's like,
right.
It's like I'd have qualified for nationals shooting a production gun. So it's like, I'm going to get a production gun. So one of the guys from SIG made the mistake of telling me where I could find a SIG Cross. And so then I immediately drove to that store and bought it. And then I was like, I'm going to shoot my SIG Cross. I'm going to qualify for nationals. Garrett showed up. It's like, I don't have any, he called me. I was like, I don't have any ammo for my rifle. I was like, well, you can shoot my 6.5. So I let him shoot the SIG Cross. I handed him that gun and a couple boxes, like 120 rounds of ammo and a dope card. And he proceeded to win the match in the production division.
No way.
Won the match. And the disturbing part was the first day I was crushing him with the 7 Mag. I mean, I was just like, that gun is, again, it's amazing. And so then second day comes around and all the politicians show up. So suddenly the second day, I'm schmoozing and trying to like shoot and schmooze at the same time and just fell apart. I was just a total disaster. And then Garrett goes in and he actually, the guy who came in second was Benny Cooley.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Garrett beat Benny. And so
that's amazing.
Super fun match. And it's fun because you've probably got a gun that you can shoot.
Yeah.
In that. And it's.
Yeah. I even shot, so I've got a 6.5 gas gun. It's a JP and LRP 07. And I was the only one there with a gas gun because it was the nationals. But I'm told that on the regional ones that it's entirely fine. So
they're going to have some guys this year from a major manufacturer shooting gas guns.
Is it going to be Hornady?
I'm not going to say. But
the Hornady guys were in a squad behind me, and I actually asked. I was like, "Hey, can I shoot 6-ARC in this?" He's like, "No," because And then he told me why. I was like, "Well, that's a shame." I was like, "Well, where can I shoot 6-ARC?" And he's like, "You can hunt." I'm like, "Damn it, dude!"
Yes, you can. I think I'm gonna shoot my 6.5 gas gun this year. I've got a Wyoming Arms gas gun that's I run suppressed on it all the time, and it's they have weight classes. That gun's built on a Gen 2 receiver, so it's like it's a DPMS was building them for a while. They're lighter than a standard AR-10, and that whole package comes in at 10 pounds with a bipod and a suppressor on it. And it's ridiculously accurate.
Nice.
And so I'm gonna shoot that for fun, just because. That's the other thing people don't realize. People who haven't hunted with a gas gun, like, you probably need to. People who have prejudices against hunting with ARs, it's because they haven't done it. I know personally, I've taken a lot of big game with ARs now, and.
Well, specifically with that Creedmoor you're just talking about, that's like your go-to for elk, right?
If I think I'm gonna hunt a really big bull and I might have a really long shot, or so typically like on those big elk hunts, I'm gonna carry my Gunworks rifle. If I think I'm gonna be hunting tight timber or something like that, it makes a lot of sense to carry a gas gun because you got a quick follow-up shot.
Right.
And I've taken myself probably 5 or 6 elk with my 6.5 Creed, to that Wyoming Arms gun. And then there's a group of us that we go out and hunt. It's a lot of former, special unit guys, and we just have fun with each other. So we go out like that group almost entirely. We all hunt with either with suppressed 6.5s and 6mm Creedmoors, and those we've taken among the whole group of us, 50 plus big game animals with those guns. And what you see is, people who would say like, oh, how many shots do you really need? You only need one. Yeah. Well, my AR, like my 6.5 Creed will put, every bullet I run through the gun into a dime at 100 yards, just like a good bolt gun will. And here's the difference. First of all, it's just a pussycat in terms of recoil. And then the other thing is, like, I can immediately make a decision on a follow-up shot. I can watch the impact or lack thereof through the optic, and I can immediately make an adjustment and pull the trigger again. And so whether or not that's an animal that's wounded and you can immediately follow it up and anchor it right there, or whether it's, you misjudge, whether Cody Arnold, who's not going to listen to this, but if he is Cody, whether Cody gives you a bad range on the first shot, you'd be like, that's off by 2 minutes, and then you can make that 2-minute adjustment, bring it down, and like hammer one. Like they just make a ton of sense. And so Ruben and I were recently doing a coal. You were hunting deer up in a certain area of Wyoming. We were hunting in around like $1 million polo ponies. We were hunting a 10-acre hayfield that was surrounded by like expensive barns and giant houses and all this expensive stuff. And like where our shot windows were 10 degrees wide, when you did a 360 degree view, and we were like, literally we're 20 feet off of a guy's hot tub. And it's
like shooting on a golf course,
dude. Yes. And so exactly like shooting off a golf course. And the thing is, like, so we were there because they needed to have animals removed.
Right.
And as Ruben said, like, hey, who better to do this than people who were like us, like who are legitimately best in class shooters, And so, you got a bunch of 3-gunners listening to this, but I mean, really, if you think about it, like, you guys have the skill set to do this. We had the skill set to do this, where we went out, we were hunting with 6-ARCs, and we were, they were suppressed, and the landowner was standing right behind us. And Ruben and I, we set up a game changer bag on a fence post, and we took turns and ranged for each other. And Ruben I knocked one over,
We waited a few minutes, knocked another one over, waited a few minutes, knocked another one over. And each time that lander was like, nice shot. Nice shot. And finally by the end of it, he's like, you guys come back whenever you want, like anytime, because there was a level of trust there. And it just, it really reemphasized like, this is why you work on your skill set.
Yeah.
Is because you know all the rules of firearm safety. You can make those decisions appropriately. Like something that sport shooters can do that if people don't get to the range enough, I don't want to pick on traditional hunters, is like there's a deer out there. It's 275 yards. I have to put a bullet into an area the size of a baseball, and I have to do it right exactly there, and there's zero tolerance for missing.
Mm-hmm. If
you practice, you can make that shot every time. And that was the cool thing about the tools we were using, the confidence in your spotter and in making all the right calls and helping you watch environmental variables. I mean, it just made it a really rewarding hunt. We were hunting doe deer, and it was the most fun big game hunt that I have probably ever done. And it was really, really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, the AR is. It's funny when people automatically go to, well, you don't need 100 rounds to hunt a deer. Yeah, I know, but I do need I need an adjustable cheek riser. And
that's right. I need to be able to get my length of pull right.
Yeah, ergonomics.
I need a good trigger.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
It's huge, and that's the cool thing about the AR is the AR is so modular that I can literally, you can build your own, or you can start in one spot and be like, and build it up. Maybe you've got a 3-gun rifle with a great trigger that you really like. Well, you know what? Go get an upper and 6 arc with an 18-inch barrel, and you just spent $300, and now you've got a super capable, big game rifle that you can even take elk with. You have to look at, truth in advertising. You're running out of juice at about 600 yards in terms of 200 yards, foot-pounds of energy for elk.
Mm-hmm.
But within that window, super capable. And if you're hunting deer, you're 600 yards with a 6 arc. But it's accessible, and it's accessible to everybody. And the technology now is accessible to everybody. And you can pick that up and do that. And it's rewarding and it's fun. And it's something you can do with your friends, and an excuse to get out on the weekend. And to spend some time in the great outdoors, and then go eat some good food and drink a few beers. I mean, it's a great game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, okay. So on that note, so we talked about how NRL hunters get great training ground for hunters specifically. Get a practice, you get the taste of competition and stuff like that. Comp Expo is where I first was introduced to that. It was where my first exposure was, my first match.
That was a neat event.
Comp Expo was freaking awesome. And I feel like for a first year event, I've been to a lot of first year events that I've been disappointed by, and this was really cool. So I guess a little background on Comp Expo. Can you kind of explain it? Like I can give you from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, I think the concept was, there were some ideas that were kicking around in groups that I run around with. And it started with the concept of the governor's match, to be honest, was this, and I'm sure other people have had these ideas. And so for me, that was the genesis, was thinking, okay, instead of just one shooting sports event, what if we could, how can we make this bigger? How can we tack other events onto this? And then I presented that idea. I just, was kicking around talking with Travis Ishida and Scott Satterley. And
which those are two NRL guys, right?
Yep. And Pete.
Pete Rensing.
Yep. And
from USSL.
Yep. And Mark Passamatic, and like everybody, we were talking about this, and then it was like, why don't you guys all both have matches at, you guys have matches at Cameo, right? And they're like, yeah. And so I was like, why don't you guys do them on the same weekend? And they bought it. They thought that idea was great. And Travis Ishida specifically, grabbed the bull by the horns and started running with it and getting more people involved. And it came together really late. It took a long time for everybody to commit. But at the time, they were able to basically, come together and Cameo, and I hope more states build facilities like this. The reason that Cameo is amazing is because Cameo is so big that you can run a national level USPSA match, a national level 3-gun match, a PRS match, national level clays course. You can run all those things there, and it's so big you can run them all at the exact same time.
Yeah, I will say that as someone who's competing in the NRL match, we passed the 3-gun match, but we never saw them after we got into the hills.
Yep.
And then there was still a dozen bays, I guess, that were left unused or dedicated to vendors that were there, which I thought was really cool. And then as far as the shotgun piece, I never even saw where that was.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's like basically it came together so late. That was part of the thing is like, where are the maps? How do you steer people around to all the different places? And I think in year number 2, they're going to have all that figured out.
Oh, because you learned a ton.
Yep. The sponsors I'm aware of, and I'm not at liberty to say, but I think some bigger sponsorships are coming in terms of the named sponsors and who's going to kind of have, the ownership tag of the event. But I anticipate it in year number 2 being bigger than it was and better than it was in year number 1. I think there were some components that they're going to have to try and figure out how to grow a little bit better, like the archery component.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And I think that this year the goal long term is to have an event where you can be one of the competitors and you can come shoot your event.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also spend half the day trying other stuff, like going up and shooting some courses on the NRL course of fire, shooting shotguns, checking out vendor stuff, looking at archery, and have that. And in addition to that, and here's the secret sauce, is not just making it for the competitor,
right?
But having an event that if somebody wants to see Jerry Miculek shoot, but isn't a 3-gunner, they can drive in from the Front Range or from Grand Junction, and they can watch Jerry Miculek shoot, and then they can go watch Kalen Wojcik, shoot NRL Hunter, and then they can go watch, they can watch all these different high-end competitors competing, and then the nature of Comp Expo is that Benelli's there, and Gunworks is there, and all these companies are there with their products, and they're set up in that situation, like in those hills, with places for people to try the game.
Yeah.
So that if you're a new competitor, if you're not a competitor at all, you're trying to branch out, you can not only shoot, maybe you are shooting one of the, events that's there, maybe you're not, but you can try everything that you're not shooting.
Well, then you had like the little vendor row, and there was a lot of bays there. I know that SIG was there.
SIG and Burris and
Vortex
Night
Optics
Force
was there.
Vortex.
Who's the Voodoo Gunworks, little 22 company.
You want to shoot 22 to 400 yards? Step up. We got it. We got 400 yards.
Dude, I was shooting a little mover at like 50, and I was having the time of my life. Like those 22s are so much fun. But yeah, it was a really unique experience to be able to do all of that stuff. And Cameo is such a beautiful place. I really enjoyed that. One thing I found out like way too late, and it wouldn't have affected me personally, but you can actually purchase things there as well. So like I know Maven was there and they were selling stuff. I know Vortex was selling stuff through their local guy that was there. Timney was selling triggers. By the way, Timney, put a bigger sign that says "Welcome into your trailer." Like it just feels weird. Like I'm going to be walking into someone's house.
I went in there and had a breakfast burrito. It was delicious.
Was anyone wearing a robe or anything like that? Slippers?
Nah, I hope not. I didn't ask. I was just like, where's the breakfast burritos? I like, you don't make eye contact when you're taking that much free food. You take the food, you leave. And that's the polite thing to do. But it was a really neat event. And I actually went up there with Sean DeGray from Total Archery Challenge, was up there doing the archery piece. Great guy. And Black Rifle Coffee was involved too. But Sean DeGray, I took him out on that NRL course of fire to shoot, and he immediately said, "I'm buying a gun."
Yeah,
and
nice.
did. He never shot a suppressed long range rifles, and I think that's the secret. Is like you give people an opportunity to get their feet wet in the event.
Well, and so for a callback, I think that's one thing that you do really well is expose politicians to shooting firearms in competition or in that setting in a very safe and I mean safe in the liberal cuddly way. Like they don't have any pressure on them. It makes it more accessible to them, and just shows them like, hey, all these gun nuts over here, they're not going to bother you. Like for example, the last year that the match was in Cody, there was just a guy at the back of the bay watching what we were doing on a stage, and just being me, like I just went up and started talking to him. Turned out he's Lieutenant Governor of South Dakota.
Yep, Larry Roden.
And that's such a mind blow for me. I've literally got a pistol on my hip. I'm literally loading magazines and talking to a guy, and then it turns out he's Lieutenant Governor. I'm like, this is weird. Like, I feel like, he should have some guys be tackling me right now or something, but totally relaxed. Nobody had any sort of pretense. And even the year before that, like, you had us shooting, you had us shooting with, who's the guy from Montana?
Austin Knudsen.
Yes.
Yeah. Attorney General of Montana. You watch Yellowstone? The real Attorney General of Montana is a hardcore sports shooter.
Yeah.
Great guy. Austin Knudsen. Austin, keep up the good job.
Yeah. And all these people are like so normal and down to earth. It's like, oh, thank God I'm out of the city now. I love this place.
I think here's the take home. If I could tell anybody, like, if you can take anything away, and I know this has been, we're going, I could talk about this literally for hours. We do ourselves a detriment in the firearms community if we make it political.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I mean by that. When somebody shows up, like, let's be honest, guns are cool and shooting is fun.
Yeah.
And it is safe. It's actually safer than, it's about as dangerous as billiards. If you look at national, incidents of accidents and harm, it's really,
just think of the billiards accidents.
Yeah. So the thing to remember is, like, if you can get these folks out, you can take a friend and shoot with them, like, you may change the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally are changing the world one individual at a time. And you mentioned it. Like, when we change those numbers, because it may start with just the firearms piece, but once they figure out and they're like, you know what, like, this isn't so bad. What else didn't somebody tell me the truth about?
Yeah.
You literally can change the world right there at the range by not assuming that somebody's political identity has to define everything about them and that they can't join your community and be your friend. And so take them out, take them shooting, get people shooting. It doesn't matter, where they line up, what their other hobbies are, what TV shows they watch, what they look like. Go shoot with people, because you'll make the world a better place. You're going to educate people. And then, especially if you know these new gun owners, be welcoming.
Yeah.
We cannot make this mistake in the community. Don't prejudice people because you think that they have to think like you and look like you and shoot the same gun that you shoot to be part of the 2A community. They don't. And if we, you can look at some of the things, there's a big kerfuffle about a recoil magazine, picture earlier this year, the front cover. Come on. Like, the right to keep and bear arms is everyone's. It belongs to all of us. And if we want it to continue to exist that way, what we have to do is be as welcoming as possible. Because ultimately, when you embrace freedom and we teach people about that, and we show them that we are broad-based and we are open-minded and we believe that those freedoms exist for everyone, we win them.
Yeah.
And they come over and then they defend us and they defend our issues. So take somebody shooting, take somebody hunting. If you're a sports shooter, give hunting a shot. Find a friend to take you out. You'll enjoy it. If you're a hunter, go with somebody and shoot a match. You'll be a better hunter. And ultimately, this is how we keep growing these things that we care about. We've done a really good job over the last couple of years. A lot better than people, than the naysayers would believe. Let's keep it going.
I like it. Well, shoot, Nephi, that's a great way to end the show here. Before we sign off, though, I just want to say, hey, thank you for all the stuff that you've done for me over the years, inviting me to the Wyoming Day at the Range, Wyoming Governor's Match, Comp Expo, all that stuff. So totally appreciate you and the stuff that you're doing for us behind the scenes. And if there's anything that I can say is like just totally agree with Nephi, just be that example of a good person and a gun owner. And then next time they're in the ballot in the little ballot booth, voting booth, excuse me, then they'll make that right decision. So thanks everybody for listening. Nephi, thanks for joining me, man. This has been great.
It's a pleasure, Dave. I have a huge amount of respect for you and what you do.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.